Okay, Derek, we're back in action live for another episode of Integration Insider. This episode is the kickoff to a 4-part series that we're going to do on still following the theme of MuleSoft migrations to Azure Integration Services. And this one is the 3 paths that we're seeing organizations take to migrating.
Hey, you forgot to introduce us.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay. So I'm Tim Bieber, Growth and Strategy Director at Horton, and this is Derek Marley. He's our Principal Integration Strategist. And some good news, Derek was recently awarded the Microsoft MVP status for Azure Integration. That's the designation.
Yeah.
And there's only one of 3 in North America, right?
That's right. That's why I didn't want you to miss the intro part.
Nice. Yeah. Hey, that deserves one of these. See if it's going to work on this camera. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, let's dive in. Enough of the shenanigans. So what we're going to get through to our audience in this episode. Oh, yeah. 3 paths. So there's 3 paths to migration. Mm-hmm. What we're finding, 2024 has really been a year of MuleSoft migrations. We're just finding a lot of organizations approaching us looking for that migration path.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, there becomes, in our mind at least, 3 paths to migrate, but we've sort of come to that conclusion recently, I would say, right?
Yeah, I think it's organically been building,
right.
But we've been able to start the conversations off really 3 approaches. So those 3 approaches being, we think of it as Augment. So this is an organization that has MuleSoft, is maybe invested behind that quite a bit. So they can't rationalize maybe a quick shift off. They need to get some ROI out of that investment, so they want to augment.
So that's number 1.
Yeah.
Augment.
2, we see it as phased, and we can get into the details of how these delineate. But phased is more like, when risk mitigation. When is my licensing due for MuleSoft licenses? And then let's come up with a strategy to decommission me off of MuleSoft and ultimately onto Azure.
Okay, so that was 2, phased decommission.
And the third one,
and really driven by license expiry.
Yeah, usually we back off of that. But yeah, so accelerated is the last strategy, which is really like, hey, we're committed to getting off. When we look at our license renewal date, it can be achievable within the timeline. The risks are not there. So let's kind of look at an accelerated path. Yeah, so we usually talk to them about those 3 approaches.
All right, so 3 accelerated. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, maybe before we dive in, let's back it up a little bit. Let's give our audience a little bit of context. Mm-hmm. Why are they migrating? What are the challenges that they're experiencing with MuleSoft?
Yeah, and I think that there's the main 3 that I think about. So cost being, we did a video not too long ago showing when we compare those 2 platforms, substantial cost savings when you look at Azure for the same compute, right? Same capabilities. If not, we've shown that there's more maybe in the Azure space that you can take advantage of, but cost being heavy. The next one is the platform. It runs in Azure, so all your integrations are in Azure, but so is your network, and so is your storage, and so is now AI inside that platform. So why are your integrations inside that platform as well? Why do we have this extra thing out here?
Sure. A lot of organizations over 2023 and 24 have really been flooding into Azure as far as their cloud platform provider.
Yeah. So if you can see you're on that platform, then definitely CIOs and directors are looking at being forced to simplify their environment. So simplification. So they look at their team skill set and they say, how does this fit? How does MuleSoft fit in this Azure ecosystem if I'm in Azure shop?
Yeah.
And then lastly, being another big one that we're hearing is just capability, right? So when we think about those things I just mentioned, AI, we look at storage options and we see security, identity management, the big ones, right? Bad actors out there trying to get into your enterprise. How can I start to simplify again from a team perspective, from a security perspective? That being maybe the third big one is capability.
Right. Yeah, we are seeing a lot of people moving over for the added capability. Yeah. Okay, so that makes sense. And now we've painted a little bit of a picture, understanding the context and the challenges.
Yep.
So now let's dive into a little bit more of an overview. Don't go too deep, but let's just let people know these 3 paths and why some of these organizations are choosing one of three paths.
Okay. Let's start with Augment. So we talked about it as a strategy or a path to a migration. So I think I mentioned it. When we think about an organization, they've adopted MuleSoft at some point. They signed a multi-year contract. Now they're looking at, I need to get my ROI, and I've done a huge capital expenditure on getting onto the platform. The business is seeing some outcomes there, but maybe over the last while they're looking at capabilities within Azure. They're looking at the team structure maybe and saying, I think from an ROI perspective, when I look at all my new integrations, how can I get the best ROI out of that? And obviously they're seeing that with the cost savings, with the capabilities that you're seeing, with the increased security and access management controls. And they're saying, I want to use Azure for all future integrations, and we're going to leave that, but that's what I want to look at. So they're seeing better ROI, and then all the capabilities gives them better integrations over time. The next one is...
So let's just stay there for a second. So they still have a plan and a desire to migrate, but just not necessarily a time frame, or it might be a flavor of them wanting to literally have a multi-platform approach.
Yeah, we don't want to lose that there is, it's not always about migrations, but in a lot of cases it ends there. But in this case, there might be an organization, we've seen it, where they really want that multi-integration platform strategy. And it really, breaks that reliance on a single vendor for all your integrations. Integrations are sticky. Yeah. Once you build them, they automate a lot of your business process, data flows. So it's going to take a while to replace those. So by having a couple platforms, you're kind of moving that reliance off of a single vendor. So they like it. They like that dual strategy of a cloud.
So we won't get into detail on that now, but that'll be our next episode. I think that'll be the order that we'll do the episodes. So anyway, let's move on then to phased decommission.
Yeah. So phased is similar concepts. So they want to take advantage of ROI. They want to take advantage, retaining their 3-layered architecture within the MuleSoft. We have show them a capability in both scenarios. We show that. This one's more backed by you have MuleSoft licensing conversation coming up.
Sure.
We looked at when that date is. We usually look at that and we back that off and we say, okay, in that timeline, you may have a year and a half, 2 years, and you have so many integrations that maybe it's not plausible for us to actually migrate you that quickly.
Right.
Risk being a big one. We want to mitigate risk, kind of wear and tear on the team, in the business, continuity. So we really look at a decommission strategy that says, how can we reduce your vCore usage so that when you do have that license renegotiation, it's not as much? And then we do come up with a strategy that takes you from beginning to end, and then we show you that timeline, and then we show you a cost that goes with that.
Right.
But ultimately, it's really about how can we start phasing it out or decommissioning it out with a good strategy.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I suppose also in that path, it's been a little bit difficult for us to come up with like defining three paths, given that there's a number of sub paths within the three paths. But I guess in that scenario as well, you might have a clear date that you want to be off at the end of that license cycle.
Yeah.
But maybe that's just over aggressive. So you want to start phasing out the number of vCores that you're using, so that when that renewal comes, you can negotiate a shorter term license with less vCore usage. Awesome. Or that on this date, if it's a reasonable time frame, and we've worked together understanding that within that time frame, you can migrate all of your integrations, flows, APIs.
Yep.
Then that's also a reasonable approach in that phased decommission.
That's right.
Okay. Not to overcomplicate things, because this is an overview.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's move on to the last one then.
I'll accelerate through this.
Yeah.
So the last.
This one's a little more cut and dry.
Yeah. So accelerated is what it sounds like. We do want to still respect that there's a timeline that we have to play with. So what we will traditionally do is look at that and then look at risk mitigation. But we'll say, okay, your license ends here. Let's back that off. And we've seen it where we've completed 6 months early and even up to 12 months early, just to confirm that we can get off the platform, migrate. The business has done well to receive those integrations. Yeah. But now we're well ahead of that license renewal. time frame.
I mean, that's pretty simple.
Yeah, straightforward.
And obviously that's, so that'll be the last in our episode series. That'll be episode 4 that we'll dive into that one, give a little bit more examples. And with each one of these paths, we'll give examples a little bit more scenario driven, so that organizations that are wanted to maybe sort of self-guide themselves down a path will understand which one. But really, at the end of the day, I mean, they want to have a conversation with us.
Yeah. I mean, every customer's journey is going to be different.
Right.
But if we can kind of get you kind of thinking the way we're thinking, you are one of these paths, and to your point, there's, we can delineate on them as much as we need to help and make the plan and the strategy work right for you.
Yeah, everyone's journey is unique.
Yeah. So
really, I mean, that kind of brings us to the end. Mm-hmm. And if anybody is interested in finding out more, I mean, all you have to do is get in touch with us. How do they get in touch with us? Probably through our website would be the easiest way. Eh? Mm-hmm. Yeah, just contact us through the website, and we've got a very formulaic approach to how we can price these things out based on the number of vCores. You let us know how many vCores you've got, and you can pretty much give them a pretty exact number of what this migration costs.
Yeah, if you kind of break it up, we did that video, I think I mentioned a couple times already. So go watch that. It really does show
the pricing.
Yeah, so it's definitive, right? Yeah. Like, here's what you're paying for now in MuleSoft. This is what it'll be on Azure.
And we even showed the calculator, where to access the Azure calculator, so you can get consumption calculation costs yourself.
And so we wanted to keep that same approach. So tell us if you're running 10 vCores in production, of which you're using 8.7 of them. We will take that number and we can give you that. What is it going to cost to migrate you based off of that? A couple of other small questions that we asked just to kind of make sure we got it right. Yeah. But we want to make sure we meet you there. Is what's the price on the platform? What's the price on the migration? And let's talk.
Yeah. So I think we got through to our audience what we needed to in this episode. Yeah. We'll get back to work with producing the next 3 in this series.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to them.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Nice. All right. Appreciate you spending the time with us. Let's go back to work now.
Yep.
All right.